Well, the chairperson of the South African National Editors Forum, Mahlatse Mahlase, has reacted to the Sunday Times newspaper public apology regarding its coverage of certain stories that have now been proven to be false.
Is it enough for the Sunday Times to simply issue that statement and say, well, we apologize, we were manipulated? Is that enough?
I don't think it will ever be enough, given, what has happened to the individuals that have been affected. I mean, many of them were hounded out of the state institutions. They lost their jobs. Lives were basically destroyed. So it will never be enough from that perspective. And also, it will be very difficult for the Sunday Times to rebuild that relationship of trust with its readers. I think they have to also acknowledge that this has to be the beginning of that process. And one of the things that I saw at least in the previous apologies, the systems they've now put in place to try and ensure that they don't make similar mistakes. And perhaps they're saying that, this is part of that starting over. As we were saying, a lot of those things happened a few years back. It was under different news editors, and now they do have a new editor who was not around when some of these stories were actually written. But
consumers of media will ask, Mahlatse, where were the systems? Are you telling me they operated devoid of any systems previously?
From what we have seen from their apologies, that they have strengthened their systems. Yes, they were there. They could have tackled the stories differently. One of the things that Bonganisi, the editor, was saying yesterday is that, it doesn't mean that even if the information we had received, if we now know differently, we would have handled the stories differently. It does not mean that we would not have necessarily covered those stories, but it's because they have had a system internally where they're interrogating how they actually covered those stories. And I guess we can only see in future publications if actually those systems have been tightened, if they actually do have editorial policies that are much stronger and would not allow for this to happen. We can only judge them by future stories that they actually do publish.
And as the South African National Editors Forum, will you be asking for further disclosure from the Sunday Times, number one? And as you said, people have lost their livelihoods. There's been great damage done to many people as a result of reports that have been put out. As SANEF, what is your responsibility in this regard?
So what we have done is that we have continued conversations with the Sunday Times. The editors are members of the South African National Editors Forum. But what it has also done is to open up within SANEF to say, where are we as an industry? What do we learn? What are the lessons that have to be learned from the Sunday Times era? And also, I think that we are realizing, or for those that hadn't realized it, the power of the media, that we are holding a very powerful position, and that powerful position has to come with responsibility. We continue to talk about the fact that we need ethical journalism. We need journalism that we must be beyond reproach as journalists. And part of this that has opened up is that within SANEF, within our editors, these are the conversations we will be having, and where is it necessary to maybe assist as an organization, the different newsroom, then we stand ready to actually do that.
But perhaps more pointedly, just finally, will there be repercussions?
Already there are repercussions from what I understand. We have learned that the two journalists have since left the Sunday Times. We don't know if there will be more.
But from
the fact that from our side, remember that the two reporters that were involved are not necessarily members of the South African National Editors Forum, but the editors of those newspapers are members of SANEF. We would have to discuss internally what are the next steps that we would need to take as an organization. But more importantly, ours is advocacy. Most importantly, ours is to be, to check the temperature of the media. And that's why we are saying that the debate has now started internally, and ours is to ensure that every other newsroom actually upholds the highest ethical standards in journalism, because we need it. We cannot afford another debacle like this one.